And that. Ready when you are.
You guys ready? We'll call the meeting of the Cape Fear RPO to order, and first item on the agenda is a roll call to see who's actually here.
Frank Williams.
Here.
Mike Forte.
Here.
Mark Martin.
Here.
Rich Alt. Jeff Weinkoff. Sylvester Ballard. Laverne Coleman.
Here.
Scott Floyd. Terry Mann.
Here.
Gary Keaton. I actually spoke to him this morning. He said he had a conflict. Jerry Groves. Hugh Kennedy. William Ravenbark.
Here.
Grady Hunt. Landon Zimmer.
And you said we do have a quorum based on the numbers we need, correct?
We do. We have a quorum.
Now that we have established a quorum, we will jump into invocation and pledge of allegiance, and Commissioner Coleman's going to lead our invocation, and then we'll do the pledge. So if everyone could stand straight.
Let us pray. Our dear Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for the mercy and grace you've shown us so far, dear Lord God. I pray that you go with us, guide us, direct us, and help us as we make decisions to impact our areas. Give us wisdom and knowledge, dear Lord God, and help us to do what's right. I pray this in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm happy to see we finally got that.
There you go.
For any of you who haven't seen Brunswick County's fairly new seal that we adopted, it no longer looks like the hazardous waste logo.
Looks nice.
Took a long time for us to agree on that. I will now read the ethics, awareness, and conflict of interest statement that we're required to read aloud at the beginning of each meeting. In accordance with the state government's Ethics Act, it is the duty of every committee member to avoid conflicts of interest. Does any committee member have any known conflict of interest with respect to any matters coming before the committee today? If so, please identify the conflict and refrain from any participation in the matter involved. Does anyone have a conflict that they're aware of? And obviously, if you see one at the point that we get to that, please note it at that point. One quick comment about the ethics forms that everybody filled out a few months ago. Unless you don't own property, you will get a letter saying you have a potential conflict of interest. Don't let that freak you out, because it's just saying that because you own property, there's a potential conflict. It doesn't mean you have one. But anybody who owns property in the jurisdiction they govern will get that letter. So that's, first time some people get it, they're like, whoa, have I got a conflict? No, it just means that if something happened to affect your property, that you need to be recused from it. With that, do we have any additions or corrections to the agenda, or do we have a motion to approve? Motion by Mayor Mann. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Rivenbark. Any discussion? Seeing none, I guess we do roll call vote.
Yes. Frank Williams.
Yes.
Mike Forte.
Yes.
Mark Martin.
Yes.
Laverne Coleman.
Yes.
Terry Mann. Jerry Groves. William Ravenbark.
Yes.
Motion carries. The agenda is approved, and we'll move on to approval of the minutes, which were included in the packet. Does anyone have any additions or corrections? Or if not, do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion.
Motion by Commissioner Coleman. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Rivenbark. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll do our roll call vote.
Frank Williams.
Yes.
Mike Forte.
Yes.
Mark Martin.
Yes.
Laverne Coleman.
Yes.
Terry Mann.
Yes.
Jerry Groves.
Yes.
William Ravenbark.
Yes.
The minutes are approved. We'll move on to public comments. Were there any submitted electronically, or
There were none submitted ahead of time.
any members of the public online that wish to comment? Any in the room? Looking at the DOT folks. Y'all are on the agenda later, so I guess you're covered. So we'll move on to presentation, and the first is an overview of our prioritization process and a preview of prioritization 8.0. And for those of you that are relatively new members, this is what basically the most important thing we do is prioritization. And I've been doing it 12 years and it still confuses me sometimes. So it's a complex process. There is no dumb question. It's better to ask the question and understand how it works. I just appreciate the fact that the people that are here and online are here. Because what's challenging is when we're just trying to make a decision for another jurisdiction and we don't know that area and there's nobody here. So I think we've got every county represented here today that's in the RPO, which is really good. So with that, I'll turn it over to Sam.
All right. As Commissioner Williams said, the purpose of this presentation is to give you an overview of the prioritization process. It is not the simplest of processes, but I've tried to give a good bird's eye view and kind of narrow it down to the basics. As Commissioner Williams said, please stop me if you have questions. Making sure we answer those questions is the most important part of covering this material. For context, and several of you in the room have seen me do a version of this before, so hopefully it'll be more reminder than anything else. But for context, the prioritization process fits kind of in this order of things that we do between the RPO, the MPOs, and DOT, and kind of the larger transportation planning process as a whole. Prioritization and the development of the STIP, which I'll explain in a second, but DOT's long-range plan is kind of this link between the long-range planning that we do both within our organization and with our planning partners that precedes the more, I guess, publicly visible side of actual project construction, maintenance on our existing facilities and things like that. So that we're working with the same terms. When I'm talking about prioritization, the simplest way to say what that is we're assigning data and then scores to projects. We then use those data scores to program projects. When we say programming, we're assigning funding and a schedule to those projects. And then the STIP, which is the State Transportation Improvement Program, is a 10-year document that contains all of those project schedules and their funding. And so those are kind of the main items that go into this discussion that we'll use frequently, but that you may not otherwise use as consistently.
While he's going through this, there is a prioritization cheat sheet in your packet. So that's something you later on can send that out separately, but I do want to make sure people know that's in here while you're going through this.
Absolutely. Great point. Thank you. So prioritization is based off of a 2013 law, the Strategic Transportation Investments Law. And that defines a lot of the nuts and bolts of what this process, how it functions, what it's allowed to do. One of the main things that it does is it establishes 3 funding categories that projects compete within. A statewide mobility category, a regional impact category, and a division needs category. They are split up, all of the total available funding, 40% for statewide, and then 30% for both regional and division. Now, when it comes to dividing those pots or those buckets out, statewide is just that. It's one big bucket of money, and it's competition, just as it says, statewide. Regionally, the state is divided up into 7 regions, and the funding for that 30% is divided based on a percentage of the population within each of those regions. So it's proportional to the population in the regions, and we kind of name them by the letters regions A through G. Each region is made up of 2 divisions, and so in the division pot, that splits 14 ways. These are our NCDOT highway divisions. So everyone in this room is familiar with either or both divisions 3 and 6. That's where we fall in. And the 30% funding for division needs is split evenly across the 14 divisions. So one difference, division is split evenly 14 ways, regional is split based on population into the 7 regions. Here's a visual, a map of where these regions and where these divisions are. As you can see down in our bottom corner of the state, the RPO, Columbus, Brunswick, and Pender counties. We are split not only between 2 divisions, but between 2 regions. So all our projects that come out of Pender or Brunswick County are in Division 3, also Region B. And so you can see who all we're essentially competing with for available funds. And then likewise, Columbus County is in Division 6 and Region C. One thing that I always mention when I show this is this means that projects that are eligible for either division or regional money, our projects in Columbus and our projects in Pender and Brunswick aren't competing for each other because they're in separate categories. So that can work in our favor sometimes.
One thing to also note is on the regional tier, Columbus competes with Wake.
Yes, that is true.
You know, I don't know, that you could not have two more different areas. So regions maybe shouldn't be just geographic. That's a different soapbox.
And one thing, I don't know that I have this specifically in a slide, but it also incorporated in the STI law is a cap on, no one area or one corridor of the state can receive past a certain, I can't remember the percentage off the top of my head, but a certain percentage of funding for projects. And so that's intended to, although your point is well taken of, Columbus and Wake counties, it can be a lopsided competition depending on the nature of the projects. There are safeguards in place so that Wake County can't receive all the money.
Theoretical.
I think each region has one major city in it. That's the idea.
Okay.
If you look at it kind of,
That would make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
so that same scenario is present in each region.
Mhm.
Although a 1,000,000-person county is different than a 280,000 person that we compete with.
I don't disagree yet.
So moving on to the types of projects that we submit. In prioritization, we submit projects across all 6 modes of transportation. So aviation, bicycle, and pedestrian are kind of merged into one mode for the purposes of submitting these projects. Ferry, highway, rail, and transit. It's in your packet in the cheat sheet that I gave you, but also noted here, wanted to color code which funding categories projects are eligible for. So for example, standalone bicycle and pedestrian projects, not to be confused with a roadway project that might include a sidewalk construction or improvement, that would be combined, but a standalone sidewalk project, for example, is only eligible to compete in the division, so in the most local of the categories. And then, another one, ferry, for example, does not compete statewide, just regionally and division. So this chart that DOT uses often to explain what I'm going to call the order of operations. Once upon a time, I was going to be a math teacher, and so we're going to use that term today. I'm serious. So their projects don't compete across all the categories all at once right away. So when you submit a project, all the projects that are eligible for the statewide category compete for the available funding until that funding is all assigned and used up. And then any projects that weren't funded statewide, we say cascade down to now compete in the regional impact. So a project that is eligible statewide, if it doesn't get funded in the first category, is eligible for the remaining 2 categories. And so it has additional chances theoretically to be funded. One note being, the more expensive a project is, the less likely it is to get funded further along in the pipeline because the buckets of money shrink and shrink. So we should never anticipate funding a project such as a big improvement on US 74, 76 or US 17, like a big sizable project in the division category, because you might end up using all of your available funds on a single project. So those 3 funding category competitions happen one after the other, so that projects can cascade down if they're not funded in the prior category. What I think is more relevant to this group to understand right now is the weight that local input has on the overall score of projects in each category. So statewide, it is fully data driven, 100% data score That's it. Submit the project. They assign the data to it. High score gets the funding. Now, regional impact is where we start having a bit more flexibility in terms of our local input that we submit in the form of points that supplement the data score. So in the regional impact category, projects have a 70-30 quantitative to local input split, with that local input being divided in half coming from the RPO, half coming from the division. And so typically we try to make sure that we're in alignment. So we're not pulling in two different directions, but that we can assign points on the same project together. And then lastly, for division needs, instead of a 70-30 split, it's a 50-50 split. The takeaway here being, as the funding category becomes more and more local, the weight of local impact or local input goes up. I mentioned this earlier, the Strategic Transportation Investments Law. Funding is directly connected to how the scoring comes out. And the STI law defines the categories and the percentages, so the statewide, regional, and division. What projects are eligible for which category. It defines the names of the criteria that will be used to score highway projects, and then the funding constraints, such as funding caps for each corridor and things like that. Now, there are plenty of things that the law doesn't specify, and for that purpose, DOT helps coordinate a work group that meets prior to each cycle to discuss all the other things. So that means the schedule, how the process is going to go, what are our dates for this to happen, then for this to happen, the highway measures and weights. And what I mean by that is the STI law will say that a highway project needs to include a score for safety. And it does not say how. So the work group, which is made up of DOT representatives, RPO representatives, MPO representatives, and several other modal experts, they meet to discuss, okay, well then how do we score safety, for example, and then there's several others. For any of the other modes that are non-highway, the work group not only discusses how to measure the criteria, but also determines what those criteria are.
One question on just going specifically the safety one, as far as defining what is and is not a safety improvement.
Mm-hmm.
That could look very different in Avery County than it does in Carteret County or Columbus County versus Wake County, because mountains present a whole different set of safety challenges than coastal communities. Probably just being anywhere within two miles of 440 is a safety issue. But Columbus County, it might involve farm equipment. So do they have any way of accounting for geographic differences in the types of safety hazards?
That's a good question. I'm trying to think.
If not, if you're on that work group, you put it on the list.
Yeah, let me make a note of that. And I don't want to
just
make an answer.
One thing we hear in county commissioner world all the time is if you've been to one county, you've been to exactly one county.
Sure.
And that's just something that, I think the law overall is good, but sometimes I think it tries to put a one size fits all on the state, and one size does not fit all on the state.
No, well said. I do know that, one of the main things that they use is, the number of crashes, the severity of crashes, whether people, are injured or killed. But
I refer back, I'll go back to evacuation routes being something that maybe should be considered in there, and maybe the mountains need them too after what we saw last year. So that might make it more of a statewide issue.
I do know that evacuation routes have been discussed.
Yeah. Make sure they keep being discussed.
It comes up every time, and especially this past cycle following the storms, both here and out west last fall. It was most certainly a topic of conversation.
Didn't mean to get you off track, but
not off track at all.
That before I forgot.
Talking about safety is never off track. So that was kind of a lot of the we'll call it the rule book for the game. But what it looks like here locally, we work, the RPO and DOT work together to review upcoming project submittals. That often includes looking back at projects that we've previously submitted as an indicator for what have been priorities for the region, as well as trying to keep track of new needs. And then this is how we've done it. There's not a requirement to do it this way. This is just generally how we've done it. We'll try to have meetings with each of our 3 counties to get together as an effort to not only engage the members of the RPO that participate on the TCC and on this group, the TAC, but to reach out to some of the other municipalities and members that don't attend those, to at least bring them in that much to say, okay, this is what we're doing. We want as many voices as possible to discuss what projects and what needs are most important to the RPO. We then put together a draft list of the projects we're going to submit. DOT gives us we're capped at a certain number of projects that we can submit. And so we try to balance that as fairly as we can across our planning boundary. We have a large planning area that we want to make sure that we're not leaving anybody out unnecessarily. And then
District Attorney John David basically equates our boundary area, even though it's Bladen County in his instead of Pender, to the state of Delaware. If you think about it, that's a big area.
Yeah, we cover a lot of ground. And the TCC looks over the list, and then we bring it to the TAC for your kind of final thumbs up before we submit it into the scoring system that the Raleigh offices use. So as far as the schedule, where are we now? You're here. So we're at the very start of the P8 cycle. When we last talked about this in depth last year, we were wrapping up P7. The project submittal window is currently slated. It opens July 1st and will run through the end of September. Again, this is the schedule as it is currently adopted and approved by the Board of Transportation. In the past, sometimes the submittal window gets extended a month. As of right now, we have no way of knowing that would happen. So we are proceeding with the end of September being our deadline to put our list together. And so in the coming weeks, you'll be hearing from me again about putting together county meetings to discuss this. But this is my way of showing you that we're at the start of the process. The work group wrapped up meeting, I think our last meeting was about 3 or 4 weeks ago. And so this is a fresh cycle, and we're right at the start. So 5 points to summarize. This is also pretty much taken from the cheat sheet that's in your packet, but I know this is a lot. And yes, that is how I see myself. As Commissioner Williams shared the quote earlier, I can explain it to you, but I can't understand it for you. I'm also not going to promise that I can understand it for myself. I've just said these things long enough that I think I actually say them in my sleep. So
Talk in your sleep.
I don't know if my wife listens.
Does she listen when you're awake? Withdrawn.
As long as I listen to her, we're good. That's the more important part.
You have learned well.
She's the smarter one. So to recap, 5 main points. First, there's 3 funding categories. And it may seem over the top. I will always color code them this way because that's how DOT color codes them. And it's just easier to keep track. So 3 funding categories: statewide, regional, and division. 6 modes of transportation that we submit projects from. Fun fact, the Cape Fear RPO is one of the few planning organizations that actually submits projects from all 6 modes of transportation. Believe it or not, the Land of Sky RPO out in the mountains doesn't need to submit a ferry project. They could if they want, but they don't need to. So we submit across all 6 modes, and I think that's fun. Simplest way to put it, funding, whatever funding is available, goes to the projects with the highest scores. That's the one line, simple way. How does prioritization work? Projects get scored, high score gets the money. What is that score? It's a combination of data and local input points. It differs based on the 3 categories, but the score is data and local input. There's no local input points for statewide projects. It's 100% data. And local input points have more weight for division projects than for regional projects. So for our most important little toolbox of how to proceed through this, these are the takeaways that I want you to have. These are also summarized in the information in your packet. And I will share this with you again, but these are the main takeaways. So at our last meeting, I think it might have been Mr. Ravenbark brought up a suggestion of how do new project ideas get submitted in. I'm still playing around with maybe more sophisticated ways of how to solicit that type of public input. And I'm working on updating the RPO's portion of the website that has our information for P8. And so once that's up, it will have just this very simple prompt for anyone, and you can direct any of your community members to do this. Right now, the simplest way to submit a project idea is just to send it to me in an email. And this is the information that I would request. Instead of just saying we need to fix US 17 in Brunswick County, I need more than that. So I would encourage people to send me the road name and then send me a to and a from point. So not just the full corridor, but I want you to give me 2 endpoints. Or if it's an intersection, this road where it intersects with this road. And then just a reason for why you think that project is needed. Is the congestion really bad? Is it unsafe? Are the shoulders too narrow and so it's very easy to go off the road? Knowing the location and the problem first, and then we will all kind of collectively put our heads together to discuss possible treatments. I think that is a better way to manage any expectations other than, we're not out here. Everybody thinks they're a traffic engineer, but they're not.
This is important. I had somebody in Brunswick County say, we need to get some projects, blah, blah, blah. I said, can you give me some specifics on what you think needs to be fixed? Their answer was all of it. That doesn't help. I need what you're saying here, Fix Highway 17. Well, that road runs from Florida to Maine. Give me more specifics. I mean.
So for example.
Did you have a comment, Adrian?
I was just gonna say, I had a conversation with a transportation person, locally, and they asked me about a project and they gave me from where they thought it ended, a project in between this road and that road. And when we pulled up the map, we were talking about 2 different projects. So, I think that's one thing to consider is how to map it on, Google Maps or something, however you decide. And then the other thing was to maybe give ideas, like, does this need a shoulder? Give them some ideas about how to play within the parameters we have. And then lastly, just to prioritize it on the scale. And even though everyone will probably have a 5, because that's the top, I think that's what's really important to your point, Commissioner, is that not everything is going to shake out the same as far as priority.
Right.
And if they can't tell me what the problem is they want to fix, it's hard for me to know what to propose. I mean, fix 17. Well, what does that mean?
That's very easy to confuse.
Yeah.
Think you're talking about the same thing.
Exactly.
Yes, absolutely. Very good points. I'm gonna make note of how to incorporate that.
Do you have more slides or you?
No, so this is the end of this presentation. This is just an example, and all cards on the table. This is one that's already on our list that we've submitted in previous rounds, and so we'll be up for discussion again. But so to say, we want improvements on Midway Road, so NC 906 through Brunswick County, but from Gilbert Road down to NC 211, and give the reason of as the southern portion of the county, and really the whole county, continues to grow, it's just getting more and more congested. The shoulders are also very minimal along that corridor. So giving that type of feedback that then I can run with and I can take to DOT, and DOT has their full kind of range of experts to look and be like, okay, let's do some type of study to determine, what would be the most feasible type of improvement. And that's their job. That's our job. And so this would be the starting point of information and feedback that we would want to get from anybody that would like to give us that. So
Does anybody have questions for Sam on this? And while you're thinking about whether or not you have a question, something that just occurred to me, Brunswick County is a little unique in that 4 of our 5 commissioners sit on a transportation board because we have the RPO and 2 MPOs. So 80% of our board is somewhat familiar with this process. In a lot of your cases, you may be the only person on your entire board that's exposed to this. And so it's important for you to understand it because you're going to be the one we rely on to go back and take this to your board. And what I've observed a lot in the past is the person who comes to these meetings knows it, but the other people on their board have no idea what we talk about, no idea that they can submit a project, no idea about any of it. And that's especially, in the counties where we've got 14 or 15 municipalities, obviously only 1 or 2 of those are going to be represented here. So please try to take as much of this back to your board. I mean, that doesn't, mean you have to talk about it at every board meeting, but maybe invite Sam to come to one of your meetings at some point and explain this to your board and give this presentation so they understand what kind of input we're asking from them. Because I don't know a lot. Once you get past Delco, I don't know what's going on in Columbus County. We rely on you guys for that. Or Pender County, if I can't see it from I-40, I may not know about it. So, I just wanted to say that because I think that's important. And, people will say, well, I want to submit a project. And they say that 3 weeks after the timeline closed. Well, you've got to wait 2 years. Well, why? Nobody told me that. And, it's not you to make them understand it, but if you can at least share the information and try to get that passed along to your boards.
So I could come up and submit a project, putting a crossover 74, 76. There's a stretch of about 11 miles. If you miss a turn, you have to go 11 miles before you can go back in the opposite direction.
Yeah, I think I know where you're talking about. Yeah, unless you break the law.
Lake Walker, Lake Walker more to Whiteville, I think, only place. There's no,
There is quite a stretch there. Yeah, so that.
From Lake Walker to Bolton to 11 overpass, there's no, if you have an accident on either side, it could pose a safety risk from responders.
Sam, if you can make a note of that one, because that's a good example of something that, I don't drive that road that often, so I don't think about it. But if you guys that live over there probably see it much more frequently.
It's
Any other questions or comments on prioritization? I mean, this is really the heart of everything we do boils down to this. So it's important to make sure that we have ample time for anybody. Anybody online have questions?
While they're thinking about that, I did, to your point, Commissioner Williams, want to give a shout out to our board member, Mark Martin from Oak Island, who's on Zoom today, who is an example of someone who's done just that, has had me come and present to their town council to explain, the things that he's heard in these meetings. And, we did this back when we got project scores from P7. He asked, hey, can you come explain what this means for the projects that were submitted on Oak Island's behalf? And I think that led to really positive conversation. And so that's an open invitation to any of you, for any of your councils or committees. I'm more than happy to come and do something similar to just provide further information and education.
And when we have the meetings in each county, try to encourage those towns that don't have a seat on this board as well to come too, because that's, and we've got some in Brunswick County that have a seat on this board, or at least in that alternate seat that I've never seen at a meeting. And they is the old saying, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu.
Mm-hmm.
They've probably got lots of needs in their jurisdiction, but we can't know about them unless they tell us. Anything else on prioritization before we move on?
That's all that I have.
Well, seeing none, we'll move on to new business. And the first item is a planning work program amendment. And basically our planning work program is our budget for the current fiscal year. And we have to submit this amendment by the end of this month. So Sam, I'll turn it over to you to share what this is.
Okay, that's correct. So this is essentially the RPO's budget. We have each fiscal year. And this item that I bring to you today is a pretty routine. We usually have this on the agenda for the last meeting of the fiscal year. There's not a change to the overall budget. This is simply a redistribution or a kind of a shuffling of funds across some of our line items. And these are line items in this PWP document that are set by DOT that we kind of portion out RPO time and expenditures towards. And this amendment is just to take some funds out of the data collection and assessment category to put them into 4 other ones. So a prioritization category, the program and project development category, administrative activities category, and then our indirect. This is, a category such as data collection and assessment, I always over budget, because if all else fails, that's a category that I fall back on for, if I have extra time, well, then I'm going to work on that. But then when other things, other categories have additional meetings or anything that would be sent there, hence the shift. So I'd be happy to answer any questions, but that's all this is a redistribution of funds. We're not getting any more, we're not getting any less. It's just cleaning up the spreadsheet, essentially.
Does anybody have any questions, or if not, do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion by Mayor Mann, second by
Second.
Mr. Rivenbark. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll do our vote.
Frank Williams,
Aye.
Mike Forte,
Aye.
Mark Martin,
Yes.
Laverne Coleman,
Yes.
Terry Mann,
Yes.
Jerry Groves, and William Ravenbark.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
That motion carries. We'll move on to FTA Section 5310 Grant Funds Resolutions of Support. And we've got, I think, a couple of resolutions in here.
Yes. So this is another routine item. So the FTA Section 5310 grant, these are the funds that our county transit agencies use. This money is specifically for older adults and people with disabilities for providing transportation services to those portions of the population, which is a big segment of the transit kind of providing that each of these agencies do from year to year. And so this is a grant program that they submit an application for annually. As part of their grant application package, they request a resolution of support from the RPO. I represent the RPO on their advisory boards, so for Pender, Columbus, and Brunswick. And then there's a 4th agency in these resolutions, Monarch. They're a nonprofit that assists with non-emergency medical transportation type trips in Columbus County. So that's what these resolutions are, just a showing of support for our county transit providers. There's no further commitment on the RPO's behalf to that. But the kind of standing commitment is we participate on their advisory board and help in any way we can that way. But that's what these resolutions are for.
And we have 4 resolutions. We can do those all on one motion if someone wants to make that.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Rivenbark. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Coleman. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll do our vote.
Frank Williams,
Aye.
Mike Forte,
Aye.
Mark Martin,
Yes.
Laverne Coleman,
Yes.
Terry Mann,
Yes.
Jerry Groves, William Ravenbark.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. That motion carries. Next item is a NC Port Authority grant resolution of support, Port Infrastructure Development Program.
Yes, so I believe that Stephanie Ayers from the NC Ports Authority is online with us. Stephanie, would you like to give context for this resolution, or do you want me to do that?
I'm happy to. So this is a grant application asking the U.S. Department of Transportation to help us fund a project that would construct a very large parking lot outside of the port terminal. It would then have a bridge for port users to take into the port terminal where the bridge lands inside the port is where all the heavy equipment and our maintenance garages would be located, so that we could remove private vehicles from the port terminal to make it safer for our port users, but also to allow us to make the inside of our terminal more efficient, and also to allow us to, instead of parking private vehicles, use the port terminal for moving cargo. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions? And I remember us discussing this, I believe, at a previous meeting.
Yeah.
You're MPO 1, I don't remember which.
Yes, it might have been for a different grant program or something, but this has been a project that we've discussed with the ports before.
If no questions, we have a motion.
Motion.
Motion to approve by Mr. Coleman, is there a second by Mayor Mann? Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll go to our vote.
Frank Williams,
Aye.
Mike Forte,
Aye.
Mark Martin,
Yes.
Laverne Coleman,
Yes.
Terry Mann,
Yes.
Gary Groves, William Ravenbart.
Yes.
And that motion carries. And next item.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome, and thank you. Next item is an amendment to or in addition to our 2025 meeting calendar in the very busy month of September.
Yes. Everybody's favorite thing, discussing adding another meeting to the calendar. As I showed you in our prioritization discussion, the project submittal window goes from July through the end of September. When we made our meeting schedule at the end of 2024, we weren't sure exactly when that window was going to be. We had a guess of summer, fall, sometime. And so, kind of took a shot in the dark and hoped that our every other month spacing, we'd be able to catch the first and the third month. But as it turns out, we caught the middle month. And so right now our remaining meetings in the year are in August, October, and November. And so I discussed with the TCC about a week and a half ago, moving the October meeting to September. And I believe it was Gary from Columbus County proposed, he said, how about we just add a September meeting and leave October on the calendar? So we've got both of those blocked off. And if we end up not needing them, we can cancel.
Yeah.
But that might just be a bit safer. And so that's what the TCC is going to do. They're going to meet the first Wednesday in September. And the whole point of this is we like to, if possible, have 2 rounds of RPO meetings, so the TCC and TAC, inside that submittal window. That way, as we work with our individual county meetings, we bring back a combined project list for each committee to review and to look at, but you're not having to look at it and approve it the first time. You can look at it, we can discuss it, we can bring it back the next meeting, just so that we have, time to kind of be intentional and aware of what we're doing. So that being the case, I don't know, September, I think the 12th is the second Friday.
If we're going to do it on a Friday in September, that's my only option for me to be here, because I've got travel. I've got something the first Friday, the third Friday, and the fourth Friday. So we could do it the 12th or do it a different day of the week and another week.
Okay. Let me double check. So I do believe that there is someone has this conference room scheduled.
We could always meet back over at the water and sewer.
That's very true. We could probably do that. What are our, I guess, other options? Does anybody have another option besides the 12th?
I was looking at the 10th or the 24th. I just have a couple of out of town travel things that start on Thursdays that month.
Okay.
I can't do the 10th or the 24th, but I'm all right with the 12th. If you can find a meeting for us.
12th work okay for everybody?
When?
The 12th of September? Okay. Well then, and I don't think I'm just going to add this to our calendar. I don't know that we need a motion or a vote on any of this, but tentatively planned for Friday, September 12th. I will double check if this room, if that's a meeting that is just a placeholder or if there's actually something else going on.
And I'm sure we could get the water and sewer authority if we needed it, and that seemed to work well for everybody.
So I will double check that. At the very least, I'll send you a save the date today just to have that on your calendar, and then I'll follow up on location as we get closer.
And I'm putting it on my calendar now just to save it.
Yeah, I will. There's nothing else I accomplished today. I'll get that sent out to everybody so you can have it. But I think that sets us up to have plenty of time to get eyes on our project submittal lists. So it doesn't feel like we're, rushing it or.
We get extra compensation for the extra meeting.
Get 100% pay raise.
If you do, I want it too.
Get 100% pay raise on your $0 salary.
I'll give you an extra firm handshake that morning.
There you go.
Appreciate you being here.
We're moving on to reports and updates. The first is the RPO.
So I'm going to keep talking for a few more minutes. There's a couple items in your packet. I'm not gonna go piece by piece. The first is STIP updates and revisions. That's a routine item that I include in there. Largely just minor schedule changes and things like that. It's in your packet. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. But I'm going to keep moving. Another thing that I wanted to put on your radar is NCDOT is going to shortly, I think in the next month or two, kick off an update for their statewide multimodal freight plan. This was last updated about 2 or 3 years ago. And they're going to start doing some work. And so as we have updates, that's the only update for now, is that it's getting started soon, but especially with us being in a region that we don't have the port in the RPO, we surround the port and things like that. It's of special interest, I think, to our planning organization, but also just an important thing statewide. I'll be on the steering committee for that plan update. And as we have updates, I'll bring those back to you, but just wanted it to be on your radar. The third item, which is has the most meat to it, is updates to the functional classification network. And so I'm going to take a few minutes to explain to you what that means. There's no action for this board to take at this time, but this is something that is typically only done once every 10 years because it follows the decennial census. And so it's very likely a topic that you just don't read about for fun. And so I want to make sure that we take this opportunity for education. So functional classification, or functional class, is a system that transportation agencies use to organize the roads. So specifically, we're talking about how they move traffic, the land that they're providing access to. And here on the screen, you can see the, kind of 5 major factors. You're looking at, how fast are people going on this road? How far are they going when they're traveling on this road? What access points, are along this? How many people are traveling? What does it connect to? All of these things are kind of considered when giving each road a functional classification ID.
Before you move into it, are bridges categorized the same way, or is there a different categorization for bridges?
I think yes. I think bridges as a standalone probably have their own categories. I don't know for sure. I would just guess that. But also they're looked at within the road network too. They're treated as the road. Yeah. So the basic terms that you might have heard before, arterials, collectors, and local roads are the 3 main categories of functional class. So arterials are going to be your bigger roads that move traffic. Think US 17, think US 74, 76. And then you've got collectors that are the connecting pieces between your bigger arterial roads and your local roads. And then local road, think this street right out here, that connects the cog to Food Lion. And thank goodness for that Food Lion. But for specifically the functional class ID, we have 7 categories that our road network is split between. And so multiple classifications of arterial, so your interstates, 2 versions of a principal arterial, one being freeway and expressway, and then minor arterial, and then 2 versions of a collector, a major and a minor collector, and then local road, with the idea being that at the top of the list, 1 for interstate, it's fully access controlled. People are driving fast, people are driving far. There's not a lot of on and off points. Whereas your local road, hopefully people aren't driving fast. They're most likely using it for very short trips. And there could be driveways all over the place. So why does this matter? Why do we do this every 10 years? So functional class is something that gets considered for roadway design, for speed limits. It does have an impact on some forms of funding eligibility, maintenance responsibility, depending on where it's classified, and also just keeping track as we plan for growing areas. How is this road functioning right there in the name of this term. Has the function of this road changed as the population that lives around it and that uses it has also changed? And especially in high growth areas like we have in our planning organization, I think we all know areas that aren't functioning the same way that they were 10 years ago. So again, at the very least, following every census, FHWA is the one that initiates this process. They communicate so that's the Federal Highway Administration. They communicate with NCDOT, who then further communicates with all the MPOs and the RPOs to review the road network to see if there are any functional class updates that should be proposed. So right now, I did a review of our roads and put together a draft list to discuss with NCDOT, and we'll have some back and forth on that over the next several months. And once we've kind of whittled that down to whatever we can agree on, I'll have more specifics for this board to review. But ultimately, NCDOT has until November 7th to have a full list of proposed changes from across the state to send up the chain to the Federal Highway Administration. So we're in the middle of that right now, and this will be an item that I bring back to you. But in case you're wondering, yes, we go road by road and double check the functional class. And if it's not the most fun thing in the world, then I don't know what to tell you. So a couple examples. So, and I got one from each county just because I want you to know kind of the idea of what we're looking at. Specifically on this map, the most basic of maps, I apologize, but we're looking at 906. I mentioned 906 earlier in a prioritization example. Another major corridor in Brunswick County that is currently classified as a major collector, but given increased traffic and its use as an evacuation route, the very fast growing population in Brunswick County, I would recommend that it goes up a classification into more of an arterial. People aren't just using it as a connecting road. People are using it not only locally, but that's a major route to the coast. Like it gets a lot of traffic.
It changed when the second Oak Island Bridge opens.
Yeah. Having that extra bridge on Middleton going over to Oak Island, that's, I mean, I would even say when I go down to Oak Island for various things, it's kind of a toss up. Do I want to take 906 that day? Do I want to take 87?
Depends on where you're going on the island, but I usually go that way unless I'm going really up on the other end, something very close to the first bridge.
Mm-hmm. So that's an example of recommended upgrade from a major collector to a minor arterial. So it's a step up in function, essentially. Another one, again, here we're looking at NC 410 in Columbus County. This being a route that comes down, branches off of US 7476 and heads straight south towards Tabor City. Again, I think it was Gary at our TCC meeting that said anybody in the summertime that is driving through Columbus County, you might recommend 410 be an interstate with the amount of beach traffic headed to Myrtle Beach through Columbus County that way. So that would be another category that we would recommend an upgrade in its functional class designation. And then lastly, also recommending an upgrade from a major collector to a minor arterial, NC 53 headed from Burgaw out towards Jacksonville. That being probably the most direct way from Jacksonville to Burgaw. So not just serving local traffic, but serving regional traffic. Anecdotally, as someone who last minute had to drive to the Jacksonville airport in the middle of the night last night, I was not the only person on NC 53, so it definitely gets used. So me and my friends out there riding the road in the middle of the night. What else do you do? So that being another recommendation. So these are the types of recommendations that go into this. In the interest of time, we're not going through all of them today, but these are the types of recommendations that I've passed along to DOT that we'll continue to discuss in the coming months. And before anything is finalized, this item will come back to this body for additional review and approval if necessary. But I know that's a lot of information, but if you have any questions.
Any questions about that? Anybody online have a question? Seeing none, thank you. Is that you have anything else on RPO?
Nope, that's all I got.
We'll move on to ports. If Stephanie is still on, do you have anything else, Stephanie? She's still on.
I don't think, nope, she dropped off.
Anyone from Ferry or any reports submitted?
No, I don't see anybody from Ferry on the call today. I'll double check. We usually have them check in at least annually.
Okay.
And so I'll do some checking before our next
Move
meeting.
on to Division 3, who I know is here because I can see them.
Yeah. I just wanted to introduce, we have a new staff member at Division 3, Eric Ritzel has joined our team. So he's the new corridor development engineer, replacing my old position that I have vacated since I got promoted. So he is going to provide the updates today. So if you have any questions, him and Adrian will help you. I actually have to run into the other room and join another Teams call that's up at 10. So I just wanted to provide that update and transition, and I'd be happy to pop back over here if you have any other questions.
Thank you.
I appreciate everyone having me. I'm originally from Wisconsin, so I'm still transitioning. I was hired in May, so.
Can they hear him online, or do you need to have them sit up to the?
Want me to stand up there?
Yeah, or just here, you come sit next to me.
I just know sometimes the other stuff.
Good point, Kathy.
Yeah.
I've got all your stuff on there if you want to.
Yeah.
Click through.
So I apologize for any ignorances I might have on any of the projects, but I'll go through what I have as far as updates, and if there's anything else we can provide for you guys, if you have any questions, feel free to stop me and we can try to address them. Starting through here, we had all of our updates provided in the original TCC packet. There's a few things that have changed from our development side. Some of those bridge projects have fallen off further down the line. These are projects more noted towards, there's a bridge project on 11 that was pushed to 2031. I know it's mostly due to funding. These are projects that are further down the road. Ones that are more current that we're looking at for as far as let dates. One was just let yesterday, so it's going through the process right now, and that's the bridge preservation of over ICWW for NC 50 and NC 210. That's in the process of being let currently. One that we have that's very big that's coming up is the Hampstead bypass, the section A. That project was for construction proposed at $222 million. So that's going to be coming up on the 15th of July. So that'll be a very large project within your guys' RPO. Moving forward with construction, we've only got 4 projects going on currently that are on here. All of them are in the midst of their progress. Percent completes have been updated since our TCC meeting, but no major concerns to note in any of these. Just to provide some of the details, we've got bridge projects on here. There's grading, drainage, pavement, and signals, and the section from Eastmore to 211 over Price Creek.
The one I get the most questions about on that is the 133 bridge construction. Do either of y'all have any idea about when that's slated to reopen?
On Moore Creek, is that?
No, the one on the bottom, the one that has 133 closed, I think that's the Sand Hill.
Right, so that's the 3 sections that we had before. It says right now that's 2026, spring of next year. We can find out if there are any incentives to make that.
Yeah, I get a lot of questions about that, especially with hurricane season coming up and that being a primary evacuation route.
It's understandable.
If you could-
And then also the first project is a result of the previous storm last fall.
Yeah.
Moore Creek, and that's actually, they're hoping that that's gonna be finished in July, I think that is. So that one's actually ahead of schedule.
Correct, cool.
As well as that River Road, I did get an update with that one just since the last 2 weeks. That has progressed considerably. They actually pushed it 2 months ahead of schedule. So that got updated for March 4th, as opposed to what is on the date there.
And is that project completion or reopen to traffic?
That should be project completion. It's still far away. You know, we still got a lot of time in between that. So, but it's showing progress. So that's a good thing.
But you're right, the difference with the checklist versus being open.
Yes. Yeah.
If you could find out, I'm more concerned with the date people can drive through it than the date the project's complete, just so if people ask me, I have something to tell them.
We probably will try to err on.
Yeah. I'd rather it be done sooner than I tell them than later, so, yeah.
I just, on that note, wanted to double check if Commissioner Forte had any other questions. He and I briefly talked about that earlier this week. I didn't know if his comments were the same as Commissioner Williams or not.
Yeah, pretty much. I'm good.
Okay, just wanted to check.
He and I had also talked about it. So that's-
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Good deal.
Yeah, we can follow up and try to get some info, push forward. As far as the project completions, these are the projects that were under construction. Gonna go through them. And that gets us to our resurfacing and maintenance. We have a number of projects that involve your guys' RPO. So all these are moving forward. We did have on there most recently was that fiber project, which is connected to a statewide fiber run. So there's a lot of factors going on with that one, but it's still moving forward. A lot of the maintenance and resurfacing projects are continuing to be updated from our end. So they're progressing. That's all I have. And as far as updates go for our projects, I'm happy to take any comments or questions.
Anyone have questions?
I was gonna ask Jerry, I had heard that the roundabout at Watts Landing Road was gonna be deleted, but I see it's still in the,
I'm not sure.
it's still in the,
I keep
Plan.
seeing it on the paper.
yeah.
Well, the step, the Board of Transportation is going to approve the next step
Okay.
in July, and that could impact some of our projects and to make changes.
It is a bad area right there, coming out of there, but I see it's still there, so that's good.
I have a few things for Division 3. I've been emailing Trevor. I was hoping he would be here today, but he's probably celebrating his anniversary, hopefully, Trevor Carroll. But the east end of Blaines Ferry Bridge, I don't know if you were involved in those emails. It's got a terrible dip, and a guy lost his boat the other day, and it's just terrible.
Sure.
When you go off Lanes Ferry Bridge on the east side, it just goes and comes back up.
Sure.
And I don't see any purpose of it being built that way, but that's the way it was left. So I'm getting a lot of complaints about that. And then again, the shoulders of our roads are higher than the pavement, and they just hold water. And New Road is real bad, and Stag Park Road. And I brought this up before, and 210 from Marriage Creek to Hampstead holds water. And it doesn't take about a quarter of an inch of rain.
Yeah.
And I know Mr. Rumbark has seen it many times. Back in the day when I was growing up, they always milled down the shoulders, to keep the water off the roads, and now they don't do it. And I understand there's one machine for 4 counties for doing that. But anyway, it's just a problem. Water standing on the road and Lanes Ferry Bridge. And I wanted to, do you have an update on the Ashton Crossroads light? I think that was 14 months away before.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Okay.
Sorry, without looking, well,
Because they are going to build 200 houses right there on the corner
so you're,
in that McLennan property.
so it's a signal that we have, that we were adding. I'm sorry.
I think it was a signal added by the traffic safety
Yeah.
additional funds. But yeah, right there on 117.
And Old River.
Okay.
Now, they did do the soil sample and surveyed it. And but before we lost our county manager, he was staying up with it. And I think it was 14 months away then. But
Okay.
anyway, I just want to bring that up. It's needed. We need a light there. And that's it.
They just recently tried to cut a shoulder down on 117 from Burgall toward Wallace. And of course, I'm old school.
I didn't see that.
They got a machine out there, they're trying to cut it down, but I'm not being negative, please don't understand me.
The new road's terrible. You should go down and use it.
It's it's hit and miss, so to speak.
Yeah.
You know, and I know that one machine trying to do everything, but
Yeah.
we'll see.
Well,
But
we're,
at least you're trying.
yeah, we're happy to bring it up. And I have, Trevor Carroll is actually, he was our maintenance supervisor when we last spoke about the shoulders and the ponding of water. And he was going to specifically drive them.
They worked on the corner of Ashton and 117 right there, and they got rid of that puddle.
Okay.
That one spot,
Okay.
you know, about 6 months ago. But there's just so many roads in the county, but the new road, Highway 210 and Stag Park Road, it's just terrible. It's mostly where people's driveways are.
Yeah.
They throw dirt up,
Yeah.
you know, and anyway, it's just they used to keep it down and now there's no money for maintenance.
Mhm.
It's not your fault,
Understood, yeah.
but it's somebody's fault. It's somebody's fault. I'm not paying any less taxes.
Yeah, I know when I was with the schools and on the bus transportation director, they were very helpful when we had issues like that. So I'm not there anymore, so it's just, it is, we will call and send in stuff and they would take care of, especially in a bad curve. But
Well, that's the other purpose of these meetings is for us to be in front of you so you can let us know.
Mhm.
So we'll look into it and I'll follow up with you afterwards and make sure I have a full list. So thank you.
Thank you.
good deal.
Any other questions or comments for Division 3? If not, welcome.
Thank you.
And you can probably leave a lot of your cold weather gear up there. You don't need a snow shovel.
I already got it in the back of my closet.
You could probably put it on eBay.
Oh, yeah.
There you
Down
go.
here, those are considered unique artifacts.
Way back in the.
Yeah, yeah,
Way back.
And I think Laverne will probably attest that a corn shovel works better than a snow shovel anyway.
Yes,
That's what I had. I had a snow shovel that we had gotten from my wife's family and the handle broke from dry rot because no one had used it in 30 years. Had to use a corn shovel. So move on to Division 6. Is anyone on from?
Yeah, we got both, Philip and Bill are online. I don't know which one of them's gonna update today.
Yes, good morning, Philip Hart. Just got a couple of slides. A lot of them are gonna be removed in future meetings and reports. But the first one was just an illustration of the RPO boundary. We're in Columbus County here in District 3 for Division 6. So I'll be touching base on those projects. Our next slide is our NC 87 corridor there at NC 11. I would say just northeast of Sandy Field. We're about halfway done with it. Estimated completion is early 27. Bridge work and interchange work, ramps, things of that nature. Grading is in progress. Our next project is in the Whiteville area on US 701 bypass. This project is functionally complete and should be working towards final signing and pavement markings along that corridor. So this would be one that would most likely come off of our future report. Our next one is just, I would say, north of Lake Walcomah on our US 74, 76 corridor. It's been combined into two projects. One's a grade separation of the interchange or intersection to an interchange. One's at grade intersection to an overpass. We're 80% complete on it with estimated completion in early 26. So again, this is one that's probably going to fall off the list at our next meeting just because paving season is upon us, and that should be wrapped up here shortly. Our next project is a US 74 corridor. I would say this is the section east of Lake Walcomah, and of course it's got pavement, structure, rehab, and some drainage work. We're 75% complete on it with completion in fall of 25. Next slide should be our sidewalk along US 701 Tabor City. This project's complete. It will be paid out in one payout, so it will be removed from our next report. Our next slide is, again, along our US 74 corridor. I would say to the east and west of Lake Waccamaw area. We've got the drainage and pavement rehab, bridge rehab work going on. It's just started. We're at 6% on it. Estimated completion this summer of 27. And then the rest of the report has a lot of our, what we call it HMIP, our highway maintenance improvement plan type work that involves like sealing, minor widening, resurfacing, milling, things of that nature. I try to call out any primary routes that may be impacted as part of those operations. But with that, that'll conclude my report, and I'll take any questions, or you're more than welcome to email me with any, my contact information's at the bottom. The last page. Thank you.
Anyone have any questions? Anything from our Columbus County folks?
I will just say this, this is Mayor Manning Weibel. When y'all first started that 701 bypass project, people in the community really complained. And now that it's basically through, I think people can see how smart DOT was for doing what they did. This traffic is moving a whole lot better, and it's a whole lot safer, and people are getting used to the limited amount of left turns. And I'm thankful that y'all have done what you've done, and I wish you could find the money to get the rest of it done.
Yeah, we're looking forward to trying to get that south side complete too.
Yeah, I know that second bridge, you're getting ready to start working on those, moving those big power lines, which is going to be a major problem, but a major project. But I hope I live to see the rest of it finished.
Well, the process you just described, Mayor Mann, is pretty much every project. People complain about it till it's done, and then they're happy about it.
Yeah.
We heard that on the causeway widening years ago, and that everybody was complaining about the project. Now they love it.
Yeah.
Diverging diamond, some people still complain about it, but it works. Anything else for Division 6? Seeing none, we'll move on to Transportation Planning Division.
Good morning. Can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, I'm trying out a new mic, so just making sure. I have a few CTP updates for ongoing CTPs in your area. For Pender County CTP, our next meeting is July 1st, and we will be discussing the bicycle and pedestrian network. We kind of summed up the highway network at our last meeting, end of April. And for Columbus County CTP, Sam just sent out an email this week about hosting drop-in sessions for public involvement. I think that our engineers and Sam are hoping to have those sometime in July or August, so they're trying to figure that out. Sam, I don't know if you had any additional updates to that. I just got your email that you forwarded to me, so you can add to it at the end of my report if you like. And the last update that I have is, I know Sam went over functional classification. The engineers at TPD are reviewing those from our MPOs and RPOs before we send it to the review committee. And I'm actually part of that committee, so I'll keep the TAC updated as we go along. Thank you so much. That's all I have.
Thank you, Nazia. Any questions? Bring it from anyone?
I'll just add on to her report. The Columbus County CTP, has been updated and is pretty much ready to go. But before we take it for presentations and hopeful adoption from Columbus County's municipalities, as well as the county commissioners, we're hoping to have a couple of drop-in sessions just to give the public a chance to review the maps and ask their questions. So we don't have those fully scheduled yet, but we're looking at some options of, maybe one in Tabor City, maybe one in Lake Waccamaw, and possibly one, at the county office, maybe even just, in the hour before a board of commissioners meeting, as people are coming in, we'll have some maps in the foyer. They can look at it, they can ask questions. A very kind of drop-in informal setting type like that. So we'll have further updates. But that's what Nazia was talking about, what we're looking to do in the coming months.
For the newer members of this board, can you give a 50,000-foot view of what a CTP is and why it matters?
CTP is short for Comprehensive Transportation Plan. You can also think of it as just countywide because that's typically how we do it. So a long range plan, 25 to 30 years out, what improvements need to happen in the county's transportation network looking forward. So it's very zoomed out, very long range in nature, but trying to have a unified vision across an entire county of what major corridors, as they currently exist, will be deficient, 20, 30 years from now, and kind of plan out some major projects that might need.
And it's not fiscally constrained. The fact that they're on there doesn't mean that they're programmed yet, but they generally need to be on there to get programmed. Is that correct?
Typically, yes. And, in a process like prioritization, one of the first places we go to look outside of receiving specific comments from board members or community members is we double check our most updated CTPs to say, okay, what were identified here as the major issues in a county or in a certain planning jurisdiction. Because those are our kind of agreed upon priorities moving forward from all of our partners working together.
And I think for those here that will be voting on those soon, just if there's a project on there you do or don't like, that doesn't mean that you're voting that project's going to be built. It just means this is a long-term vision. So we had people some of our members in my county wanted to get hung up in the weeds on it. And this is a big picture document, not an in the weeds document.
And typically, while there might be a general idea of a project recommendation on a specific corridor, the biggest thing is the identification of that corridor needing an improvement. This is not a design. This is not an engineering plan to say, here's the corridor that needs an improvement and here's the specific treatment. That's what we're doing. It's less that and more of, this is an area that we've identified a need and a concern and a very rough idea of how we might pursue that in the years to come.
Long.
Absolutely.
Is he on that committee? Are you on that committee, Jerry?
Which one?
CTP?
I don't think so.
The steering committee for the Pender County one is largely staff on the steering committee.
Okay.
But as we'll have a couple different opportunities to bring reports to the elected officials or things like that. But the steering committees are typically staff.
Okay.
And we don't have any staff now, so.
Your long range planner is usually pretty participatory.
Okay.
But I know y'all have had a couple.
Lexi resigned.
Mm.
And I think a lot of people, when they hear plan, they think that means it's going to be built. It's almost more of a vision document than a plan.
Okay.
That term could possibly confuse people, but I think it's important for especially the newer members of this board to understand what it's about, because there's so many acronyms and we have to have a legal size sheet of paper at the MPO for the acronyms. So
you got 2 pages in the back of your packet with some acronyms.
Yeah.
We'll move on to integrated mobility. Is anyone online?
I don't see Kim sometimes on the call. I can give an update for her. So just as our last meeting, I believe you all approved some resolutions to go along with some applications to IMD's multimodal planning grant program. So we sent those in, but at the same time, there are 2 applications that we sent in last year that were both awarded, and that was for updated bicycle and pedestrian plans in Southport and Oak Island. And the steering committees for both of those plans have started meeting. I believe there's another round of meetings coming up in the next few weeks. I know that Oak Island has a survey, a public survey that is currently live, getting public feedback. I can't remember if the Southport one is live yet or not, but just wanted to let you know those are 2 kind of bike and ped related planning activities that are underway in both of those communities. And we're hoping, a few months from now to hear about some of the other applications that we submitted.
Any questions on that? If not, are either of our Board of Transportation reps on?
No, Mr. Zimmer is not. He was here last time, and I believe I've heard that Mr. Hunt is retiring, but I have not yet been notified who might be taking his place.
According to Facebook, Mr. Zimmer is fly fishing in Montana, so I'm not surprised not hearing from him today. Say that again?
Yeah, he's on vacation.
Yeah, I saw a nice rainbow trout that he posted. I tried fly fishing once and got tangled up in the trees over my head. It didn't go well. We'll move on. Any other discussion, one thing I have is if there is at least one municipal member from Brunswick County that is fairly new that I've never seen at a meeting, if we can make sure they're getting the notifications and also that their clerk is getting them and knows what they are. Because if they're not going to be here, I'll reach out to the town and see if they can see if they can get someone else that will be.
I did try to reach out yesterday, but wasn't able to get in touch, but I will continue to follow up on that.
And follow up with the clerk, Donna, at the city of Northwest, and also the mayor, make sure she knows.
Sure.
Because that's an area I don't recall Northwest ever having a member on this board that attended meetings as long as I've been on it. Sandy Creek had someone, but Northwest never has, and they're missing out because they certainly have lots of needs because they like to call me about a month after they should have usually. But it'd be good for them to participate.
And especially with our prioritization, county by county meetings coming up.
Yeah.
The past couple ones, at the very least, Mayor Grady has been attending those.
Yeah, she's been attending those, but she's not the person that's on this board.
That's correct. That's correct.
I just want to make sure that they understand why it matters. And if they can't be here then open it back up and get someone who can. Any other discussion or business, or if not, do we have a motion to adjourn? Motion is made, and I will just say, unless somebody has an objection, we're adjourned. You can stay here if you want to, but we're adjourned.
Here, sir, can I speak to you a minute? Put it on the free.